My holy man sent Bible verses instead of sorry admitted. He lied about therapy and cheated months in, and now I'm done being his project. I'm afraid that I'll be going into great detail, but I genuinely don't know how to comprehend all that happened without telling the full story. We met in a parking lot behind a burrito place, headlights across each other, like we were about to duel instead of hand off a charger. I said he could borrow. He smiled like he already knew me. That's the ridiculous part. How casual it all was before it turned into whatever the hell I've been crawling through. He had that mild, harmless church boy look. Faded baseball cap, nice teeth, polite to the kid who returned the wrong order. You know the type. Safe. Or at least rehearsed. And I'm not trying to paint myself as some naive baby deer. I was doing fine before him. Friends, rent paid, gym, boring grocery lists. When you're doing okay, you fall for calm. You misread silence for peace. Our first fight didn't look like a fight. It looked like him disappearing for hours after I sent a text that sounded too heavy, which was me saying I felt gross after seeing my ex's new girl on Instagram, and could he just talk to me for a minute? He said, I'm at Bible study, we're not on our phones. Then nothing until midnight. Later he would repeat that format like a liturgy. He turned absence into a rule and told me it was spiritual discipline. He made me feel needy for expecting a response. I told myself it was okay because he did little nice things. The charger, the burrito place, remembering my coffee order. When someone withholds the crumbs, get gourmet real fast. Month 3, we're in a grocery aisle, can soup, and those weird coconut waters nobody actually likes, and I'm choosing something dumb while he stands like a statue by the cart. I ask which one he wants. He says, whatever you want. I say, I want you to choose something sometimes. He laughs, not a mean laugh, exactly more a radio host chuckle. My body heats up like I'm doing something wrong by wanting him to give a shit. He reaches for a can of tomato soup and says this. Happy. That's how it started, small and sharp, the feeling that I was always pushing a heavy door that he'd unlocked only a crack. For months, and we're at his sister's barbecue, everyone loud and kind and in each other's business in that family way I never had. His brother-in-law plays with the baby while flipping ribs. His mom asks me if I grew up in church, and he hovers at the edges, smiling at me like, see, this is the future I can give you. At some point, he asks me not to drink more than 1 beer because it makes me too loose with my words. That's a weird sentence, yeah? I never even raise my voice around him, but he says it in that soft, measured tone, so I take the slow sip like I'm a teenager being watched. Later in his car, I say, you don't need to monitor me. And he says, I'm monitoring myself. I'm trying to be the man God wants me to be. It's always that God said, God led, God put on his heart. God apparently wants him to be silent and me to be patient. I didn't have the language for it. Not then. Emotional unavailability sounds like a podcast topic. In real time, it feels like standing in a room with your hand on the light switch, flicking it up and down, and nothing changes but the sound you're making. I kept saying, I love you, like maybe that was a code word that would open him up. He'd answer with, I appreciate you, or that's kind of you to say. And you can call me stupid, I won't argue, but at the time I thought he just expresses differently. People love to say that different love languages, as if silent and avoidant is a dialect. We broke up the first time around the 1.5 year mark. Timeline gets fuzzy because we kept doing that boomerang thing where you call it, then you don't stick the landing. The fight was about money, but it wasn't really about money. He had told me he couldn't come to my friend's engagement party because he needed to help his church with his fundraiser fine. But then he posted a picture from a steak place with some guys from the church, and the caption was a Bible verse about brotherhood. I was pissed not because of the money, but because he hadn't told me the plan changed. I texted him too many times. He didn't answer. I called. Voicemail, voicemail, voicemail. That whine in my chest built into a full scream I kept inside. When he finally called back the next morning, he sounded like he'd slept great. Sorry, my phone died, he said. What's up? I said, are you fucking kidding? Which is apparently not how you speak to a holy man. He said, I don't like when you curse. And I said, I don't like being lied to. And we ping-ponged like that until I said the words, we should take a break, to make him react. He didn't. He said, maybe that's wise. Here's where I need you to understand me, because I keep trying to understand myself, and I trip. He made me feel crazy, and then made me feel guilty for feeling crazy. That whiplash rearranged my brain. It's like when you lean down to pick up a bag you think is heavy and it's empty. You almost fall over because your body planned for weight that wasn't there. My body planned for the weight of an argument, and he kept letting go of the rope. So I fell into air and blamed myself. We got back together because he said he started therapy. He said it like it was an act of worship. I'm humbling myself. He told me about his therapist like she was a character in a book I wasn't allowed to read. She says I intellectualize my feelings, he'd say. Or she says I protect my sense of self with distance. I ate it up. I thought finally, he'd come over and hold me like a post-it note you're afraid to crease, and I'd try to say something vulnerable, and he'd nod very slowly, as if he were taking notes inside his head. I remember one night, I cried on his couch because I had a terrible day, and I told him I needed him to tell me I wasn't too much, and he said, "You're not too much," but the way he said it was like he was petting a dog he didn't want to adopt. I told myself he's learning. He's trying. That word tried to save us while it quietly strangled me. We're at month 18, and we have one of those blowout arguments where every sentence starts with "you always" and "you never." He leaves my apartment while I'm mid-sentence, yanks the door of the old wood, makes that cracking sound, and I think he's in the hallway waiting to hear if I'll run after him. No, he gets in his car and goes. The silence after a slammed door is a person all its own. I text him, "Can we talk?" I text him, "Please." I text him a picture of the two mugs we always use for tea lined up by the sink and instantly hate myself. He says nothing for 5 days. 5. I wore grooves in my legs from rubbing my palms on my jeans. The thing about 5 days is you move through this whole progression. Panic, anger, bargaining, numbness, shame. By day 5, shame. The shame makes you either sit still or finally pick up the sword you said you wouldn't wield and use it. I told him we needed to break up. I didn't scream it. I said it like a nurse delivering an inconvenient diagnosis. A day later, he sends me Bible verses. That was the moment something essential in me flipped off like a switch nobody labels because they assume you'll never need it. Ephesians 5, he texted, "Love your wives as Christ loved the church." Then he wrote about how a holy man can still love an unholy woman and build a holy family. You catch that, right? Not "I love you," not "I'm sorry," not "I fucked up." He wrote an essay that basically said, "I can redeem you." I stared at my phone like it had insulted my mother. The arrogance and the cowardice baked into one paragraph. I didn't respond. I made pasta and ate it standing up and cried into the sauce because the first thing you cry over is never the thing. Then I blocked his notifications, put my phone face down. 2 weeks later, I unblocked because I'm not a hero. And then I did okay. I don't care if that sounds smug. I made lists and checkboxes. I deleted the stupid hemp shampoo he liked and bought the one that makes my hair smell like a fruit stand. I filled my calendar with small, specific plans. I slept diagonally like I owned the bed. I drank in a backyard with friends and called myself fine until fine didn't feel like a lie. Time did its dull work. And I kept doing that thing where you draft texts in your head you'll never send. I told myself he'd never call anyway. Because why would he? Because silence was the only instrument he played. Yesterday, he texted, "Can we talk?" I stared at the bubble like it had bitten me. The last time he asked me that, he used my words as a mirror to adjust his own face. But he wrote about establishing a better relationship with God and lowering his pride, and I'm not made of marble. Curiosity is a disease too. I said sure. He called at a time he knew I'd be home, which made me mad for some reason. Why is it more infuriating when people remember your schedule? His voice sounded careful like he practiced. I waited for him to ask how I was, and he did not really. He said he wanted to apologize for everything, which is another way to apologize for nothing. I told him if he wanted forgiveness, he should go get it from God. I wasn't a confessional booth. He did that small inhale he always does when he thinks he's about to be noble and said he wanted to be honest with me. I said, "Cool, then be honest." He said he knows pride has been an issue. I said, "I don't care about your abstract sins, I care about what you did." I told him he needed therapy, not because it's some magic, but because he needs one person who won't let him perform. He said he'd been going before we got back together the first time. I asked which therapist was that. He said a name. I asked where she practiced. He hesitated. And because some part of me still wanted to believe in a reality where I wasn't an idiot, I said, "Tell me about one useful thing she said." He paused. He said, She said I intellectualize my feelings, which word for word is what he'd told me last year, and something about the repetition, the script, made me realize I'd heard a show, not a confession. So I asked, "Are you lying?" He said no. I said, "Tell me the address of her office." He said, "I don't think," and that was it. I said, "Did you lie to me about therapy to get back together?" And he said yes. Just like that. Yes. Like I'd asked if he wanted fries with that. In that yes, I heard the whole fucking year. Every time he nodded slowly, every time he said, "That's interesting," every time he looked past me while I told him a story about my dad, every time he used the word boundaries like a shield, every time he implied his faith made him different. I said, "You made up elaborate therapy stories." He said, "I didn't think it was elaborate." That insulted me more than the lie, honestly. He not only lied, he gave me bad fiction. And yes, I know how petty that sounds, but when someone deceives you, your brain grabs the nearest stick and starts swinging at every detail. I pictured him making up fake traffic on the way to fake therapy. I remembered him bringing a granola bar and saying, "I didn't have time to eat before my session." It makes you dizzy, like standing up too fast. I asked him, "What else? Is there anything else you've been hiding from me?" I asked because when someone confesses one thing, there are always more rooms. He said he slept with a girl while we were broken up. I said, "When?" He said, "In the gap." I said, "Which gap?" We had a few. He told me a month, and it lined up with when he'd posted pictures of volunteering at church. I told him sleeping with someone while we were actually broken up isn't technically cheating. I also told him the way he told me, like it was a service, made me want to break something. He said he didn't want to hide. I said, "You're late." Then I asked again, "Anything else?" Because I could feel some edge he hadn't stepped over yet. He went quiet, then he did that little clerical sigh, the one men do when they want credit for the hard work of saying the truth. He said he cheated 3 or 4 months in. I felt it like a strike to my ears, not my heart. It was awful and pure, that jolt. I had this vivid image of the month 3 grocery store aisle, the coconut water he didn't choose, and my stomach turned because apparently I had cast him in this role where he was just emotionally bunkered when actually he was also fucking someone else. I said, "With who?" He said a girl from his past. He framed it like a stumble. It was a low point, we weren't official yet, he said, and I said, "We were together." And he said, "I hadn't figured out what we were," and I said, "Then you should have asked me." And he said, "You were intense," and I said, "You were selfish." We weren't even fighting. It was like two people reading different scripts into the same microphone. I don't remember hanging up. I just remember realizing the world hadn't changed outside my window. The neighbor's dog still barked at nothing. Somebody was hauling a cart down the sidewalk. My hands were shaking and my mouth tasted like metal. I didn't want a version of me that would emerge after I knew. That's what I thought, because I knew the first thing I'd do is inventory everything and turn my memory into evidence. Month 3. He left my place at 11, said he had an early morning. That was the week my period came late, and I panicked. Month 5. He got weird when I held his phone to show him a meme, and a text came through from an unsaved number, and he said it was a client. Month 7. We ran into a woman in the parking lot of that steak place, and his face did something I didn't have a word for, a brief tilt toward the ground like he wanted to disappear his own head. I wrote, "Parking lot girl" in my notes app. Then I felt sick. I had turned my love into a folder of screenshots and dates. And before you play internet therapist and tell me that's trauma behavior, no shit. I did it because he made me doubt what was real. Then I decided I'd have proof, and what he proved with his own mouth blew up my file like it was made of sugar. I thought about calling his sister, the one who lent me his sweatshirt after that barbecue when the night got windy. I thought about demanding the parking lot girl and asking if she has time for coffee. I thought about writing his therapist a thank you card and addressing it to nowhere. Mostly I sat on my floor with my back against the couch because the structure of a couch felt like too much support. I drank from the bottle, which is something I never do because I see the cartoon of people doing that and I don't want to be a cartoon. But then you find yourself doing it and it's just you and your stupid mouth and a bottle, and nobody make a soundtrack for that moment. I cried in a way that embarrassed me even though nobody was there. I made the ugly noise. I tried to do that rational thing. If you were already broken up, then the girl in the gap doesn't count. And on paper, fine. But the point isn't the count. The point is he calculated my threshold for pain and told me the smallest amount he thought I'd accept until I pulled more, and then he told the next smallest amount. He held the faucet drip by drip. The cheating at month 3 is the part one can't cram into any story where I'm an adult with a spine and taste. He kissed me that same week. He put his hand on the back of my neck, and I returned it because I didn't know the context. The word context is heavy to me now. It turns water into bullshit soup. There's this whole cast of characters in my head now, and they all speak at once. There's the version of me who torches his life, sends screenshots to his pastor writes on Facebook so his mom sees. There's the version who goes quiet and moves on with grace, who says nothing because assholes expose themselves eventually. There's the version who meets up with him for coffee so he can cry and I can feel superior. And there's the version who calls him and says, "Tell me everything, because I've always wanted to know where the bodies are buried, even if I can't recover them." I almost called. I didn't. Instead, I wrote notes to myself like a detective who lost her badge. You don't need full information to leave a burning building. You don't need to prove a stranger lit the match. I can hear the chorus of internet strangers chanting the obvious. He sucks. Duh. But loving a person who sucks and then having them confirm they suck in a specific way does something strange to your insides. It's not just heartbreak, it's humiliation. Humiliation is the loudest part. It says every soft thing you did was stupid. It says you were a mark, not a partner. It says your understanding of the world was basic, and now you're in the advanced class where the syllabus is just a mirror. I keep flashing to small times I'd offended him, like when a friend said he seemed cold and I said he's thoughtful, or when he bailed on my cousin's art show and I said he's overwhelmed. Lies. I lied for him because he lied to me, and you think the lies will build you a shelter and then a wind comes and clears it like dust off a bookshelf. I won't pretend I didn't lash out. I scrolled to his text from yesterday and wrote paragraphs that sounded like opening statements in a trial. I typed, "You use God like a costume," and then deleted it. I typed, "Therapy isn't a magic word you use to get pussy," then deleted that too because I didn't want to use pussy right then, which is hilarious because I swear like a sailor, but sometimes a word hits like a bruise and you don't touch it. I typed, "I wish you just told me you were a coward," which is probably the truest sentence I've ever typed about him, and I deleted that also because I don't want to keep talking to him in any language. I finally sent, "Don't contact me again," and then turned my phone off because I can't be trusted not to look when the Android bubble thought I'm worth a tap. Do you want petty details? I'll give you petty details because my body wants revenge and my brain knows revenge is boring, so I'll just dump the trash here. One time he left an open Bible on his coffee table to a page with a highlighter cap off beside it, and later I realized the highlighter tip was dry like crusted dry, which means he staged it. How small do you have to be to stage a highlighter? Once when we were walking, he made this huge performative thing out of giving his leftovers to a guy on the street, and then told that story at small group like he had gamely passed a test. He told me he battled lust and then cheated at month 3. He said, "I don't like porn," like a brag, and I think maybe that was true, but not because he's moral. I think he liked the feeling of being good more than the reality of being kind. I went to the kitchen at some point because rooms make me restless when I'm buzzing, and I poured another drink and it sloshed and splashed my toes, and I laughed in this ugly hiccup way because crying and laughing share a hallway. I thought about my dad who loved my mom in a quiet, simple way. He wasn't perfect. Nobody is. But when he fucked up, he said, "I fucked up," and then he changed his behavior like he meant the apology cost him something. I don't think my ex ever paid for his apologies. He charged them to an account under God's name. I try to shape the narrative so I wouldn't have to say I failed, because that's how it feels in your chest, even if you know the logic says you didn't. I should have left when he ignored me for 5 days. I should have left when he texted me Ephesians instead of sorry. I should have left when my stomach dropped every time I heard him explain himself like a principal. But love is messy, and also I'm not a sermon. I'm a person who wanted to be chosen who stayed, because leaving makes the world tilt, and staying makes the day predictable. I kept thinking I could be patient enough that he'd remember how to love loudly. He didn't forget. He didn't know. How do I feel? Every minute morphs. I wake up furious, and then like a bad magic trick, I'm sad at noon. By the afternoon, I get that calm, alienated feeling that makes grocery stores feel surreal, like I'm moving through a set built for a different version of me. Evening, I get brave and start making rules. Night, I break them and scroll our old photos and zoom in like there's a clue embedded in the pixels. I'm not drinking to forget. I'm drinking because the taste anchors me to my own mouth when the rest of me is floating away. It's not healthy. Don't at me. I'll put the bottle down. I just need the sting on my tongue. You want logistics? He cheated 3 or 4 months in. He slept with somebody during a break. He lied about therapy to manipulate me back. He wrapped it all in scripture so he could pretend he didn't need to use the words love or sorry. Those are the data points. Here's the part that doesn't fit in a bullet list. The way he looked at me once when I said I was scared to be like my mom, who stayed with a man who shouted more than he hugged. And he said, "You're not your mom," with a firm voice. And for a second, I believed him because he sounded like he cared more about my future than his comfort. He should have been an actor. He'd be incredible on a show where the audience never sees the off-camera takes. I keep cycling back to the stupidest thing. I wanted to stay friends with him. That's what I told myself after the breakup. I didn't mean friends like happy hour buddies. I meant I wanted to hold on to the piece of him that made me pour 2 cups of tea and watch dumb action movies and lean against him without thinking how I looked. I wanted to preserve the minor comforts. After yesterday, I can't even imagine texting him about a show we both liked. It's not that I have to hate him now. It's that friend implies safety, and he took the floor out from under that word and called it growth. I don't wish him well. Not right now. Maybe someday I'll say the magnanimous thing because it makes me feel spiritually superior. Right now, I wish for him what he gave me. The experience of realizing months too late that the person in the mirror was a mark in someone else's play. I hope he hears his own voice telling somebody, "I'm working on my pride," and he feels the pit in his stomach that tells the truth. I hope he learns to speak an apology without writing an essay around it. I hope he never gets to stand in front of a congregation and pretend his faith is a personality while some woman holds on to herself with both hands in the pew. The part of me that still loves him, the part one hate, wants to explain him to me. It says he was raised in a home where feelings were sin unless they were gratitude. It says men in his circle get praise for restraint, not tenderness. It says when he told me he was going to therapy, he wanted to be that guy, the one who does the right thing, and lying was a shortcut to the self he wanted people to see. It says he didn't cheat because I wasn't enough. He cheated because he's a coward who can't sit with discomfort without trying to find a body to soothe it. Maybe all that is true. Maybe none. Maybe he's just a garden variety asshole with a leather Bible. I texted a friend who has known me a long time and said a messy paragraph that ended with, "Do I sound crazy?" And she said, "No, you sound like someone who got lied to for sport." That helped, but only a little. I took a shower because I had that panic sweat smell that embarrasses me even alone. I put on the sweatshirt his sister lent me a million years ago and immediately took it off and then stood staring at it on the chair like it was a moral decision. I threw in a bag to return her someday and then put the bag in the closet because everything in the open is too much. Do I tell his sister? Do I blow up his little holy man bubble? I could lace the story with the details that would hurt the most. The timeline, the callous, yes, the way he framed it as an act of honesty when he chose the safest version for himself. I could say your brother texted me a Bible verse instead of an apology. But then I become the broadcaster of my own humiliation, and I don't want to carry it like merch. I want to put it down and leave it in a place where it becomes a rock other people trip over, not a banner I wave. This is the worst kind of stupid, the kind where you're not actually stupid, but you feel sunk in it. I know I'll be fine. I know the list of things to do. Block, unfollow, throw away, objects, tell friends, therapy, sleep, sweat, work, repeat. I know I'm not the first person to realize a relationship was a scam with some sprinkles on top. Still, I was doing good without him. And now I'm stuck on the image of month 3 me, the girl in the grocery aisle, trying to get him to choose coconut water, and I want to climb back into her and say, there's a whole ocean of you he doesn't get to drown. Pick the thing you like and go home. I want to say that to me now too. I don't need the red bow. I don't want to wrap this with a tidy moral. Sometimes the answer is you got burned and now you smell like smoke and you open the window and it will clear when it clears. I'm not looking for a step-by-step or a Bible verse or a self-help aphorism. I just needed to put this down because it's heavy and telling the full story makes it less of a ghost in my house. I'm not asking for advice beyond the obvious, which I can recite along with you. I think I just wanted witnesses. If I say it out loud, I can't pretend it didn't happen tomorrow when I wake up and see sun and think maybe I dreamed the part where the person I love treated me like a project and a placeholder. I don't think he understands that healing doesn't come from a well-worded confession. It comes from the parts of your life he never touched. It comes from stupid jokes with friends who know your face. It comes from the way your legs feel after a long walk. It comes from the hour you put your phone in a drawer and breathe like a human being who isn't auditioning for the role of forgiving woman. It comes from throwing the sweatshirt in a bag in the closet and letting it sit there until it becomes just fabric and not a story. And it comes from the rage too. Rage is a good engine if you point it away from your own heart. I keep catching myself rehearsing what I'd say if he called again. How I'd say, no, you don't get to launder your guilt through me. How I'd say, stop using God as your PR. How I'd say, if you ever do therapy for real, start with telling the truth before you want credit for it. But maybe the most powerful sentence is the one I already sent. Don't contact me again. I have to mean it. I have to mean it even when the part of me that liked making 2 cups of tea gets loud and nostalgic. I have to mean it even when the night hits me weird and I think of the way he folded laundry with this precise, fussy method that used to make me smile. I have to mean it even when I want to brag that I'm above revenge and actually I just wanted to trip on a curb. I don't know how to explain the combination of heartbreak and relief. Heartbreak because the faith I put in him was a little altar and he pissed on it. Relief because I can stop trying to explain him to himself. I can stop being his translator. I can stop holding my breath, waiting for him to speak a language he doesn't know. I can speak mine. Right now, my language is messy and full of 4-letter words and shaky sentences, and I love it anyway. I'm writing this because the story won't shut up in my head, and because if I tell it to my friends one more time, they'll start to look at me with the soft eyes people use for roadkill. I don't need the soft eyes. I need the truth. I stayed for too long because I wanted a holy family with a man who didn't even have the guts to say, I love you without loopholes. I stayed because I thought patience plus Jesus equals character. I stayed because he said therapy and I heard promise. I stayed because I thought I could earn attention by deserving it. That's the harshest line. I try to earn what should be given. There's no tidy wrap-up, remember. No satisfying slap across his smug face, no group of church friends circling him and saying, how dare you? The satisfying thing is small and stupid. I poured the rest of the bottle out. Not in a dramatic, I'm done way. In a this tastes like regret way. I brushed my teeth like I was scrubbing something off my tongue. I opened the window. The neighbor's dog barked again. Somebody laughed 3 floors up. I'm going to bed now. Maybe I'll dream about parking lots where I hand strangers chargers and nobody texts me scripture as a substitute for love. Maybe I'll dream of coconut water and I'll pick one quickly not because it matters, but because I trust myself, which is the whole point, right? To trust yourself again after you hand your trust to the wrong person and they stuff it in a drawer next to a dead highlighter and call it faith. I've been doing good without him, but now I just feel like I've been terribly deceived. What do I do? How do I even feel about this? I know I'll be fine, but damn, this is just so hard to go through right now. My opinion, I'm in a similar place right now, and I never thought it would be me either. But here we are. You will recover and find some peace, even if it comes in uneven waves. Let the feelings land. Crying or raging isn't failure, it's release. Talk to someone safe, someone who won't gossip, or write it out so it's not looping in your head. Keep your body moving. Walks, workouts, stretching, and give yourself small absorbing tasks. Learn a skill, try a new hobby, cook a recipe, anything that reminds you you're a person outside of him. Speak gently to yourself. You didn't deserve that. Go strict no contact, block, mute, delete. He may try to pull you back. Let silence be your answer. Pack away reminders, ask friends to run interference, and feed yourself sleep, hydrate. Healing isn't linear, but it is happening. Keep going. Good luck, OP. So guys, what do you think of this story?